In 1967, deep in the forests of Northern California, two men captured something on film that defies explanation. It wasn't blurry. It wasn't distant. It was clear, and it looked back. This is the Patterson Gimlin film, the moment Bigfoot walked into history. Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin were just riding their horses along Bluff Creek, which is this little spot by the Klamath River way up in Northern California. Now, this place is in what we now call the Six Rivers National Forest. So, while they're just chilling and riding, they spot something wild across the creek. A big, hairy figure just walking around. They whipped out their camera and started filming. This all went down about 25 miles northwest of Orleans, California. So, this thing was shot with a 16mm Cine Kodak K100 camera. Pretty cool, right? Now, the whole clip is about 59.5 seconds long if they were rolling at 16 frames per second. That's a total of 954 frames. But if they cranked it up to 18 FPS, it's more like 53 seconds. Now, there's this one frame 352, where the subject turns its body and looks straight at the camera. That shot, it's become the iconic image everyone talks about when they discuss this case. Now, picture this. It's a big, broad-shouldered creature, standing on two legs, totally covered in hair. So, Patterson jumps off his ride, grabs his camera, and starts filming while Gimlin, being the good buddy he is, hangs back on his horse to keep an eye on things. They were guessing the height of this thing somewhere between 6 and 7 feet tall, give or take. And later on, folks have tried to figure out exactly how tall it was, but you know how that goes. After they wrapped up filming, they gathered up the horses, and Patterson decided to grab some extra footage of the trackway. Then, the two of them tried to trace the subject's steps through some brush and gravel bars for a bit. But they ended up losing the trail. They headed back to camp, which was a few miles away, to grab some plaster. Once they got back to the site, they managed to cast two of the clearest footprints. One for the left foot and one for the right, before they returned to town. That night, they rolled into Willow Creek and filled in the local shopkeeper, Al Hodgson, about what went down. Patterson also gave his brother-in-law, Al Dightley, a shout to get the film developed ASAP. Meanwhile, Hodgson tried to get in touch with this archaeologist named Don Abbott. He was one of the few scientists who was actually open to checking out Bigfoot reports. They were hoping he could come by with a tracking dog, but he passed on that. The next morning, it was pouring rain at the site. So, Gimlin went back to cover up the prints with some bark, and then both of them decided to head out of the backcountry to dodge any washouts on those logging roads. Meanwhile, Patterson set things up to get the exposed reel sent off for processing through Dightley. He wanted it screened and duplicated as fast as possible. Before long, the film was making the rounds for all kinds of viewings and media spots. Pretty wild, right? Some independent folks went out and documented this trackway. Lyle Laverty from the U.S. Forest Service and his crew snapped some pics of the tracks at the spot just a week later. Fast forward 9 days after the whole encounter, and in comes Bob Titmos, the taxidermist and tracker. He made 10 casts of the tracks and mapped out where Patterson filmed and where this creature had walked. Museums and researchers are still holding on to those casts, and even some later recasts from that whole episode. Alright, so check this out. The whole site got super overgrown, and for years, no one really knew where the filming spot was. But then, in 2010, the folks over at the Bluff Creek project decided to dive in. They used aerial pics, some old creek surveys from the 60s, and even did some mapping on the ground to figure it all out. And guess what? By 2011, they finally nailed down the exact spot of that sandbar and the camera. Pretty cool, right? In late 67 and 68, the reactions from scientists were all over the place. Some folks who study anatomy and primates were like, that totally looks like a guy in a suit. But other people were left scratching their heads, trying to figure out the way it moved, and how everything was proportioned. And to make things even trickier, there was some debate about how fast the film was shot. Was it 16, 18, or 24 frames per second? That made it super tough to compare how it walked to how humans walk. So, this film tech dude, Bill Munns, took a good look at the old footage and all the stuff that's been done to it over the years. He said, "Hey, there's no sign of any sneaky edits or fancy tricks going on here. That's cool, right? But here's the kicker. Just because the footage looks legit doesn't mean we know if what's in it is a real creature or just someone in a costume. So, we're still left hanging on that one. Pretty wild, huh?" From the start, there were allegations of hoaxing. In 2002 to 2004, costume retailer Philip Morris publicly claimed he had sold Patterson a 6-piece gorilla suit that was then modified and used for the film. He offered anecdotal details about how to extend the arms and bulk up the shoulders, but presented no surviving suit, receipts matching the film subject, or contemporary documentation that could decisively tie his product to the footage. Bob Aronoumas claimed he was the dude in the Bigfoot suit. So, journalist Greg Long wrote a book back in 2004 that has some of Bob's friends and family backing him up. They said they saw an ape suit chilling in Bob's car right after they filmed. But here's where it gets tricky. Some folks are saying there are holes in this whole story, pointing out that the way Morris described the suit doesn't really match up with what Bob's saying. Plus, no one has ever found the original costume. Crazy. John Chambers, the Hollywood special effects wizard who worked on Planet of the Apes back in '68, totally denied having anything to do with some of the wild costumes from the film. He was like, if they showed a suit, it would need some serious upgrades that you just couldn't find in the regular costumes back then. Universal Studios even chimed in, saying they could maybe whip something up, but it would take a ton of custom work. But honestly, nothing really ever led to a clear answer. Alright guys, let's talk about something kinda wild. Back in '99, there were some computer-enhanced pics that had folks claiming they spotted this weird thing at the waist. But, let's be real, those claims are super debated. A lot of it has to do with overdoing the zoom and messing with the images. So, the bottom line, after all these years of digging into those images, no one really agrees on what's what. It's a bit of a mystery, honestly. So, Patterson kept it real with the whole thing right up until he passed away in 1972. And then there's Gimlin. This dude stayed out of the spotlight for years, but he's always said he wasn't in on any hoax. He's still sticking to his guns, claiming that what we see in that film is a legit unknown primate. Both of these guys have been super consistent in what they've said to the public. So, yeah, that's the scoop. Besides just the story we heard, turns out Patterson was really pushing for those screenings and even sold some rights that overlapped, which caused a whole lot of legal drama and left everyone scratching their heads about who actually owns what. Now, when it comes to the original camera footage or negative, nobody really knows where it is. But don't worry, there are still some inner positives and projection prints hanging around. And those are what we've got to thank for the modern versions we see today. Let's talk about some cool stuff from the site. So, there are these awesome artifacts, right? Especially the Titmo's sequence of casts. They're still hanging out in museums and private collections. One of the casts from that 1967 trackway is a real standout. It's about 18 inches long and over 9 inches wide. That one was curated by Grover Krantz and is chilling at the Arizona State Museum. Pretty neat, huh? If you're up for a little adventure, you can totally check out this film site by hiking up those logging roads near Bluff Creek. Researchers and fans are out there using those old camera spots to figure out things like sightlines, how far someone walked, and how big the subject was. So, even though we still don't know exactly who or what that subject was, we've got the camera positions all sorted out now. If you're into that kind of stuff, it's definitely worth a trip. There's this long-standing rumor that the folks behind Planet of the Apes were somehow involved in this whole thing. However, John Chambers, the guy who worked on it, straight up denied it. He even said it was tough to match what we see in the movie with the suit tech they had back then. I truly believe Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin captured a living remnant of something ancient, intelligent, and elusive enough to outsmart science for more than half a century. The footprints, the muscle movement, the stare caught in frame 352. It all suggests this was no man in a suit, but a creature that has walked these forests long before us. Hereon they are watching us. We don't dismiss the impossible. We investigate it. Because sometimes the truth really does leave footprints. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. If you're as into UFOs and all that cool disclosure stuff as I am, do me a solid and hit that subscribe button. Give this video a thumbs up and drop a comment below. It really helps me keep the good content coming your way on this super fascinating topic. Seriously, I appreciate it so much. Catch you later.